Welcome to episode 150 of the Grip Strip podcast, and welcome to season 4 as well. Happy New Year, happy 2023 to you all the listeners and supporters of the GSP. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host. Of course, we got to do this. It is 2023, but we still have the same open for our great man. I don't. The race doesn't exist anymore on iRacing, but he's a computer genius, an iRacing Indy 500 champion, a gentleman and a scholar, Jacksonville Jaguars super fan, Josh Fine. Happy New Year, brother.
Yeah, happy New Year to you, Phil. Glad to be back for 2023 and start season 4. So ready to get into it. And of course, we still got 1 week left or so and change of the regular season in NFL. And Jacksonville Jaguars, of course, 8-8, which I did not think would happen, but at the same time, here for it and everything. And I actually did bet on the Jaguars at the beginning of the season that they would make the playoffs or get 8 wins, which that was the hedge. So I guess I'm kind of right there. So we're gonna find out here on Saturday when they play Tennessee Titans in the AFC South Championship de facto game. So back for 2023, and looking forward next couple of months. We got a lot of racing in the next couple of months. Rolex 24 in Daytona's at the end of January, which I'll be at. So looking forward to all of that happening, and ready for the Jaguars to make their move and go into the NFL playoffs, hopefully, and see where we end up in the middle of February here.
Yeah, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are trending up along with some other teams. We'll definitely discuss that here to start the show in regards to the football, which is what we'll open with on this milestone episode 150 to start the year. There's a lot of sad and somber news that we're going to open with, though. Damar Hamlin's uh, you know, heart attack on the field and everything that has come of it since. We have to go over. It seems like from different entities that he is starting to come around and take a turn for the better. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a while, but our prayers are with Damar Hamlin and his family, and for the organizations and everybody that is involved intricately with uh, Damar and his family and the Bills, Bengals, etc. This It's just a crazy thing to see. It's a horrible. I mean, there's people social media. It reminds us, like for us, Josh, a way that with certain racing incidents over our lifetime that we've seen severe racing incidents and not knowing what's going on and the silence and the fear and all these things. Like it's just it brings things back into perspective for sure. And another thing that brings perspective is the loss of Ken Block, um, the man who created DC Shoes, the man whose Gymkhana videos are known worldwide, so popular that there were people questioning. I was reading a story about him on motorsport.com, possibly going and testing a Formula One car way back when. And they were questioning his validity of being able to get a credential like a VIP pass at the Canadian Grand Prix. And they go and bring him. He gets the VIP pass, and more people are freaking out about Ken Block. And this is going back 14, 15 years ago than the drivers of the day. Ken Block was worldwide. Um, when you're able to make all the connections and business connections he made over time, and he's just a racer through and through. Uh, we give our condolences to his wife and his children. I know his daughter Leah um, had a heartfelt message she wrote for her dad, and I think she's gonna eventually carry that torch and be that light for her dad and carry on that tradition because she seems to have that um I guess that it factor or whatever you want to call it. She has the itch to want to do it. So um we lost Ken Block a couple days ago. There's been other things going on. I mean, it's just been weird to think it's the fourth day of the year and all this crazy stuff has happened. It's something, but we'll after we go over NFL, talk about Ken Block. We'll do the recaps. We've been doing that here the last few episodes. We'll talk about Xfinity and Trucks in this episode. In next couple of weeks, we'll go over a couple other series. Probably do IMSA prior to the Rolex 24 and do it as a combined show there. We'll get into roundup, talk about the Dakar Rally that started a few days ago, give updates on news and IMSA, NASCAR, Formula E that's going to be starting here next week, Formula One, IndyCar, et cetera, et cetera. Josh will do his first sim segment for 2023, and we'll close the deal. So yeah, Damar Hamlin was a heart attack on the field after making a tackle on T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals in the first quarter of Monday Night Football in Cincinnati and Buffalo. Cincinnati was up 7-3, I believe, at that point. Joe Burrow had already driven down the field once and scored. The Bills came back the other way, but was only able to get a field goal. And then on the ensuing possession, this is that the incident occurred. And ever since then, it's been like a blur in the NFL. And I don't know if you saw it, Josh. I didn't see it live, but it's pretty jarring to see. It's scary. I mean, I was talking about it with my buddy on Monday, where because he remembers he had like a family member have a similar thing happen while they were just playing pickup basketball, and then we're going over people that have had this a similar kind of situation. Think about Reggie Lewis for the Boston Celtics. He had this happen. He had a heart attack or some. I can't remember exactly off the top, but he ended up basically dying on the floor of the Boston Garden. And I mean, there's been other things like I think Bo Kimball or not Bo Kimball. There's his teammate. I have to go look it up, but there's been other instances over time in the history of the NFL. There's only been one player that passed away on the football field itself. It was in 1971. Detroit Lions player Kevin Harlan brought it up even on the radio telecast. So I mean, it's scary to look at the great EMS and the teams and everybody who got together to get the treatment. His mom was there, which is I can't imagine seeing your son is 24 years old and you see that happen. His family was there, all came around and got there to support him. I mean, the outpouring of support for Damar Hamlin and his charities and all that is great, but it's a life. Even though the NFL doesn't care about the players, really, it's the human element and seeing the good that is in this league, and a lot of people who have been affected by this unfortunate, untimely instance here on Monday Night Football. Josh, what were you thinking? And it's been a weird time these last few days for sure, in regards to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't watching it live either. I was just scrolling through Twitter. Or actually, I was scrolling through something on a Discord server I'm in, and people started talking about like uh something that happened to an NFL player, and it's like, wait, what happened? And I had to go on Twitter and look. They're talking about tragedy, and because like things are scrambled and everything on the timeline, trying to figure out and find out that he collapsed on the field, and they had tried to administer CPR and AED on the field, and so immediately, uh, you think, okay, well, something cardiovascular happened, and um, he collapsed on the field and everything, and just a really weird time trying to figure out what's going on, and trying to you know talk to other friends that might be watching the game or whatever, or in the know, and discuss what happened, and yeah, just trying to figure out what they're gonna do, and it took like an hour for the NFL to um, you know uh, announce that the game had been postponed permanently for now, but then also he they had said that his mom had been into the ambulance with him, or they picked her up, or on the way to the hospital. So there is a lot of things happening, and you just had to kind of sit back and just hope and pray and everything, that this player would be all right, and for Damar Hamlin that he'd pull through and everything, and so far he's in critical condition and everything, and just continue to hope and pray for best news that he recovers, and still in critical condition right now. So he's improving, but there's a long way to go. From type of injury like this, but the type of injury I think probably like what I've seen from people talking online is, I guess, I'm pulling up here, uh, comedo cordis, I guess, or commutio cordis or something like that, which basically is like a strong impact to the chest, causing the heart to stop and get cardiac arrest. Which I guess, like, you don't really see that in football, right? Because people make tackles all the time, they're okay and everything. But just the right set of circumstances happened here in this case, and he had cardiac arrest, and this pretty pretty significant, because like you never see that, and I think really the only sport you might see that in is baseball, right? Pitcher or somebody, or ball player taking impact to the chest from a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, or from a hit, or base hit that comes back to the pitcher, another fielder or something like that. So or that's like the only issue, or instance where you might think of something like that happening in maybe other sports too. But yeah, a player collapsing on the field, um you know doesn't happen. The fact, even on, like you mentioned earlier, in basketball and other sports, it's even rare. And we have a unique perspective, being that in motorsports we've seen things happen where crash takes place, and driver doesn't get out, and you become concerned with the type of injuries that could have happened, or if, a potential fatality happened. We've seen a lot of things in motorsports, death of Dale Earnhardt, Justin Wilson, Ayrton Senna, all these drivers who were, in motorsports and passed away, or even people that survived, like, Ryan Newman, which I saw in 2020, with his crash at the Daytona 500, and other drivers that, you're just waiting and waiting for him to get out, or for the rescue workers to pull him out, from the car and take him to the hospital or whatever. So, just a, you know, situation where you can only hope for the best, and hope and pray that the person is okay, and that they'll pull through. So they're continuing to monitor the situation, of course, and of course the game got postponed, and kind of leaves the balance in the air for the playoffs. I mean, we have to talk about that and everything. In the moment, you don't want to talk about it, but after it happened, I mean, of course, people like Skip Bayless got dragged on Twitter, and rightfully so, and we don't have to talk about that here anymore. I mean, it's already been said and done, so I don't really feel any need to discuss that. But the fact matter is, playoffs could be delayed. I mean, if they decide to play it, like, or resume the game after week 18, then of course maybe that delays the playoffs by a week, and then could remove the bye week before the Super Bowl or something like that. So could be possible where they could decide to abandon the game or something like that, or move on from it in some capacity, or however they decide to do it. So that's certainly a possibility as well there too. But um, I mean, it was going to be a game that could have decided the seeding for the number one seed, and for the Bills. I think this would have locked up the number one seed, or secured it, something like that. And then I think for Bengals, since the Ravens had lost on Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football the day before, they could have won the division. I think there if they had won that game. So that's a lot of balance that still has to be figured out and everything. So we'll have to go through it, but just a weird situation, and I don't think anybody wants to be in it. But on the other side, people giving out love, prayers, support for Damar Hamlin. Of course, people raising money for his charity online, which he launched in 2020 for giving away Christmas toys and gifts for children and everything. And now people have found that GoFundMe page, and millions of dollars have been donated, hundreds of thousands of dollars from the players and everything have poured in. Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, other people who have, Andy Dalton, I think, as well, who have donated to his charity. And so just in the aftermath of this, just a lot of positivity, and support going towards this man. So just continue to hope and pray that he recovers from this. And don't know if he'll be able to play again, but certainly want to hoping that he has a good life after recovering from this and everything. So we'll just have to go through it and continue to monitor the situation.
And that's all we can do. It's day by day. Hopefully, we will be able to see Damar Hamlin again, and we pray that it is in a manner that he can live. First of all, would hope that that's the case, but then also just that he can have a life. He can live his life. That's first and foremost. I mean, you brought up a lot of the deaths in racing over the years, those big accidents, um, and then yeah, okay, yeah, all right. So I mean, it's a what was I gonna say? I had the names. It's like Hank Gathers was the guy in college, and his teammate Bo and best friend Bo Kimball. They made a big run in the NCAA tournament. They were supposed to be a great team. It was like not San Diego. It was what team it was, but he passed away. Chuck Hughes was a Detroit Lion back in 1971 who passed away. And then I was talking about Reggie Lewis, who had a heart incident on the floor at the Boston Garden and then passed away later on, just practicing shooting around a couple months later. I mean, it's just it's those kind of things. Like it can happen in an instant. It's like how you think about Dan Weldon's incident, his untimely passing, and how literally he was just biding his time, and he went from biding his time running in essentially the back of the pack to what ended up taking place within a couple of seconds. Um, it's just crazy how that happens, and it's really um, jarring and rough. But the hope that Damar Hamlin will be all right, and in the long run, that's really what matters first and foremost. Um, But since we are going over all aspects of this, I mean, we're gonna get into the fantasy perspective of it. We're gonna get into what the schedule may look like. Josh already mentioned that. Charles Robinson on Yahoo Sports already brought up what essentially are the two options. One is um, which it seems like they're leaning towards a total cancellation, and their playoff positioning will be based on the win loss percentage versus teams that have a full 17 game slate like the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's one aspect, and then or as Josh you mentioned, a week moving it back to where What essentially that would mean is the Super Bowl the week like they used to have years ago. I've known it with 2 weeks with in between the championship game and the Super Bowl. I've also known it with 1 week between the championship and the Super Bowl. And personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Do it that way, get it moving, let's get things going. I think that's the more I think the in my mind the more palatable thing. You can build up the playoffs that way too, and to give them enough time, give both the Bills and the Bengals enough time. It can also make a difference in regards to results for people who are playing fantasy. I mean, I know fantasy doesn't really matter, but for those who have a piece in there, if you're in a final trying to win, that's something that has to be looked at. They haven't made a determination yet, but we will see what happens. In a more positive note, uh, Josh's Jaguars put a whooping on what likely will be the number one pick in the NFL draft, the Houston Texans. Trevor Lawrence didn't have to do anything. I mean, his replacement at Clemson, who got benched this year, could have been the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they would have still won. I think they could have gotten Steve Berline out of the stands or wherever I think he's announcing now, or Mark Brunell. They could have gotten David Garrard. It doesn't matter. Like every quarterback, they could have. No, Leftwich calls plays for Brady, but I'm trying to go back into the history of Jacksonville Jaguar quarterbacks, and it didn't really matter who the quarterback was. I think they could have had Blaine Gabbert or what's the guy from Central Florida, Bortles.
Blake
You could have
Bortles.
Bortles. Yeah, you could have Bortles out there. You'd have won that game. But what it means for the Jags is a win and in scenario on Saturday night, where if they beat the Tennessee Titans, I don't know where you guys were at before you went on this win streak. I think you were at weren't you like five games under 500 or something when you went on this winning streak? Essentially, they were nowhere. Nobody thought they were gonna win the division. It was like another rebuilding season, but all of a sudden, Josh, I guess it works the same way as the algorithm. He had a idea of something that was going to come that most of us didn't think. That Jags were going to win 8 games, and they have a strong possibility of winning 9 games with Tennessee playing Josh Dobbs at quarterback for a second week in a row, and of not 100% Derrick Henry. A lot of injuries on the Tennessee Titans, uh, and not much of an offense to speak of. But I guess, Josh, it's the thing. I know who you're going to pick in that game, but what do you think? Like, did you really see this coming? Did you see Trevor Lawrence after early in the season, what some of the growing pains he was having, turning it around and being the guy like everyone has said he was going to be? And basically him and some of these other young players carrying the team on their back to get this team within one game of a possible playoff appearance and a strong possibility of advancing if they get in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, like, I had thought at the beginning of the season based on how they played in the preseason games, the 2 preseason games that they played in, against the Steelers and against the Browns, that, they could move the ball pretty well in those games, and, I thought, they look kinda good, and, I mean, it could happen, and I knew that, they were gonna be pretty competitive. So, I was like, "Well, why not? Let's put in a playoff bet," and then I hedged with 8 wins because I was like, "Well, if they don't go in the playoffs, they're gonna have, um, 8 wins that, I don't think 8 wins will get you in the playoffs, but 8 wins to me would be reflective of a pretty competitive team, on record." And yeah, they're there. I mean, didn't predict that they'd get to 8 wins like this, but I thought, they'd get there. So, I mean, I hope they get a ninth win because then that, gets the playoff bet. Although I was kind of secretly hoping that they would actually lose on Sunday to the Texans, and then I'd still have the wager on both ends. And if they got the win, then they would win and the playoffs. So get both bets in there. But I mean, I didn't bet like a large amount of money or anything like that. Just a you know $20 bet on both ends. So I don't even know. I have to look at my gambling account there and see. I haven't even looked. I basically made an account, put that bet in, and bet on the first game of the season, and haven't opened it since. So I have to look on there. But um, I I didn't think after they lost, they had the 5-game losing streak after the London game, when they had that, loss there to the, Denver Broncos. I did not think that they would well, I I didn't think it would be really likely anymore, although I still had a little bit of hope. It's like, they'll figure it out. And next game against the Raiders, they went and won that game, and started out poorly, right? They 17-0, but then something lit up in Trevor Lawrence, and they came back and won that game against the Oakland Raiders or against the Las Vegas Raiders. And I was like, well, it might happen. And then, cautiously optimistic against the Kansas City Chiefs. They lost the game, but they had a lot of mistakes that could have been more competitive. And I was like, well, maybe it's still the same team that we've seen. They just got a good win against the Raiders. And then they went and won against the Baltimore Ravens. And, Trevor finally had his game where he had a touchdown deficit or needed a touchdown to go win the game. And he finally did that and won in the last minute. And I was like, okay, here we go. This team can make the playoffs. And that's where I started looking at the playoff scenario chart and seeing, okay, what are the different scenarios, how we can make the playoffs, and started, doing the, thing where you simulate all the way up to the playoffs and seeing where the seeding lands. And I was like, well, probably going to be division. And, they had the game against the Detroit Lions where they played poorly. And it's like, well, maybe not. But then the Titans also lost that week as well. So it's like, well, it's still in play. Then they went and beat the Titans. They thumped them and, beat the shit out of them and owned them that game, which they're going to do on Sunday in Jacksonville. And they won that one. And then
Saturday night.
yeah, on Saturday night. Yep, Saturday. I forgot, but uh, yeah, they won that game, and it's like, okay, now it's really a strong possibility. One against the Cowboys. I was like, with the way that happened, I was like, okay, they got to make the playoffs now. And you know, since then, they defeated the Titans, or they defeated the Jets, and then they defeated the Houston Texans very handily. So it's all right there in front of him, and they control their destiny. And even if they do, I mean, I guess there is a possibility if they lose, but then they're going to be depending on a couple of other games, and don't want that to happen. So rather it happen with a win. So I think Saturday we're going to see Saturday night we're going to see the Jacksonville Jaguars win against the Tennessee Titans. So um, probably they've been saying it's probably going to be the biggest regular season game in the history of the team, which not going to argue with that. Considering the circumstances, from being the first draft pick this year, last year, Urban Meyer disaster, 2020 only winning one game, the Jalen Ramsey saga the year before in 2019, 2018's disappointing follow up to the AFC Championship run in 2017. So the lead up to this, yeah, I could agree with that statement there. So, last week against the Texans, they um, didn't perform all that well offensively passing, but I guess they were just trying to get out of there with a win, trying to get the out of there and not have any too much injuries or anything like that. So I guess it's understandable because they still won big time. They beat a team they should beat, and that's what you need to do when you're a playoff team is you beat the teams that you should beat. So that's what I think there. And the Texans weren't really good, and they managed to beat them. So now we get to play the Titans, and Titans are very injured right now. They still have Derrick Henry, but same time, Josh Dobbs, who actually was the backup for Gardner Minshew in 2019 for the Jaguars, who they traded for from the Steelers. He's not really that great of a quarterback, so don't think really have to fear him. And they didn't really have any offensive threats besides Derrick Henry, so for their skill positions. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting game. Should be exciting, and I think Jaguars again come out with the victory and they win the AFC South. for the first time since 2017. So, and they'll be the fourth seed in the playoffs. And by my projections, the San Diego or LA Chargers go out and win their game on Sunday against the Broncos. Then it'll be Chargers at Jaguars in Jacksonville, which Jacksonville beat the Chargers back in Week 3 in Los Angeles. So it'll be a rematch of that game in Jacksonville. So should be interesting, and should be a good playoff game there if that happens. So um, really excited, and can't say I didn't predict it, right? But same time, didn't expect to be in this position like this. So glad to be here for it, and just ready to watch on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, that's one thing both of our teams have in common. We somehow or another lost to the Denver Broncos, which is one of the worst effing teams ever. It seems with that phony Russell Wilson at quarterback. But Jacksonville, we're gonna see on Saturday. We'll definitely tell you on episode 151 if Jacksonville won. Hopefully they do, because I don't think I don't think Josh is going to want to do episode 151 if the Jaguars are not in the playoffs. Um, I would venture to, the way that the Niners season has been down to Mr. Relevant now and Brock Purdy, and he's played at a very high level. This last week against the Las Vegas Raiders was definitely a struggle across the board, but some of the players definitely showed up. Couldn't stop Devontae Adams. Jarrett Stidham looked like Tom Brady. It was ridiculous. It made me. It's probably part of the reason why I drink. The reality of that game, I was really worried they're going to lose the game, but Purdy made plays. Brandon Ayuk made plays. Christian McCaffrey has been an absolute, he's a stud in the voice of Charles Barkley. I mean, right now they're in the mix for the number one seed since the Philadelphia Eagles dropped a second straight game with Minshew. He didn't play as well as he did against Dallas last week against who did Philly play? Was it New Orleans? Yeah.
Yeah, they
I
played.
think it was New Orleans.
Yeah, they played
Yeah.
the Saints. So
Yeah, so that was, I mean, New Orleans, that's their signature win of the year, trying to keep Dennis Allen employed. Uh, Marshawn Lattimore comes off of the injured list and gets a pick six. So tells you how big certain players can be. Philly now is in a race to get the number one seed, likely will, because the Giants are going to be playing people that work at the American Dream more than likely than any of their actual players, because they can't move. They can't go either way. They're going to be the sixth seed either way. Um, After locking up their first playoff appearance in I think 6-7 years, something like that, the Niners have a chance. They'll play Arizona. Arizona's on their fourth quarterback, David Blau, whatever. They played some other guy, Trace McSorley, a couple weeks ago on Sunday Night Football. Couldn't complete a pass really of any value. Then they moved on to Blah, and then they'll be playing them this week at home, and we'll have a home game the following week. Who that'll be against to be determined. Uh, Giants, it's either more than likely going to be the Giants if not everything stays. Or right now, actually, they're the 2 seed. They'd right now play whoever wins the Sunday Night Football, theoretically the last regular season game of this season of the 2022 season, which would be Green Bay hosting the Detroit Lions. Whoever wins that game will be the 7 seed in the playoffs, and the Green Bay Packers are on a heater. And Detroit it's insane. They were 1 in whatever, and it looked like Motor City Dan Campbell was going to get fired. And then all of a sudden, a light switch went off for them too, and now their offense is insane all across the board, especially with passing. Uh, though they weren't that great last week because I'm on Ross St. Brown, didn't really do much. But Running game is there. Motor City. I mean, their defense can be a sieve. The Carolina Panthers exposed that a couple of weeks ago, gave themselves hope, and then promptly last week against Tampa Bay, weren't able to do any of that and help Tom Brady out after what has been one of his worst seasons of his career. Um, make another playoff run and win another division. Uh, so, I mean, it's interesting. There's a lot of things that can take place here in terms of the NFL playoffs. I mean, I know that obviously for Damar Hamlin, as I mentioned earlier, is the biggest concern, and we'll see how all these players handle the situation for sure. So right now, I'm just going off of NFL.com's current lineup of playoff seeding. The Kansas City Chiefs are the number one seed at 13-3. They'll be playing the Raiders, who had their great game against the Niners, but weren't able to come through. Bills and Bengals are 2-3, and the Jaguars and the Titans are going to play for the 4 seed, and likely there's a chance it'll be the Chargers. It's either going to be the Chargers or the Ravens in that 5 hole to go and play the Jags. Otherwise, the 3, there might be, as it stands, the Ravens are in the 6 and the Chargers are in 5. So the Bengals would end up playing their division rival at home. And then at the moment, the New England Patriots are in the 7th spot with a battle against the Bills on Sunday. The Miami Dolphins have a matchup with the Jets, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have a matchup with the Browns. Now, if they can win and the Dolphins and Patriots lose, the Pittsburgh Steelers would back into the playoffs as a 7 seed and play more than likely, as it stands right now with everything that's going on, the Bills, but that may change, of course. That's in the AFC. In terms of the NFC, the Eagles are at 13-3, even with the 2 consecutive losses. They are still the number 1 seed. They'll be playing a Giants team that has nothing to play for. And the Niners are trying to play to get the division get the division and the number 1 seed, the Eagles. Otherwise, if there's some dumpster fire and the Dallas Cowboys are able to beat the Washington Redskin General Commanders, who figured out a way to napalm themselves last week with 3 picks against the Cleveland Browns, with Carson Wentz basically ending his career with that pathetic performance, and Ron Rivera possibly getting himself fired because he didn't even know that there was a playoff spot and the line if he had lost that they were going to get eliminated, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. And that's just crazy. You can say, oh, you don't know what the hell your positioning is in the playoffs. You don't know if you lose, you can get knocked out. I mean, that's ridiculous. So now they're going to be playing a backup quarterback. So more than likely, the Cowboys are going to win. If they win and the Eagles lose, then the Cowboys become the number 1 seed. And I believe, and the Eagles would fall after starting 13-1. If they were to lose whatever 3 consecutive games, they'd go from the 1 to the 5, which would be horrendous. Niners right now are the 2 seed. They got past the Vikings, who lost last week. They got demolished by the Packers. Every loss they've had has been pretty bad. Big point deficits. Buccaneers are the 4, and they'll be playing whoever is either the one that finishes second in the NFC East, either the Eagles or the Cowgirls. Giants are locked in at 6. can't lose that no matter what they do. As it stands, they'll be playing Minnesota. If things hold, if it changes around, it'll probably be the Niners. Seahawks have a chance to get in. At the moment, right now, they hold a 7 seed, but if they win, then they definitely, I guess, are in. But I think the Packer Lion game is supposed. They are putting it there, I would assume, because that will determine that playoff spot. Now, if Seattle loses, I think it'll still be that scenario, I think, but we will see. Right now, the first 13 picks or at least the top 13 teams have been eliminated from the playoffs. The Texans, Bears, Arizona Cardinals, Broncos, Colts, Rams, Panthers, Falcons, Raiders, Jets, Saints, Browns, and Commanders. So that's we went over all that. And let's see here. We'll talk about the draft more next week because that'll be relevant during the college football national championship game. Uh, and then I'll go and move that over here. Draft discussion. And then, football, fantasy football. I guess we're on hold for that. Hopefully, we'll have some more answers next week, determining what's going on with that. So I think I'll move that one as well. Because right now, Josh, if depending on the scenario, Josh is in a close battle with Jeff in our league for third place. I'm losing pretty bad to Wilson in the final, but I had 4 players in the Monday Night Football game, which was looking like it was going to be a shootout, and so
Yeah, I think
that's where.
Yeah, I think for your team, you still have a chance, but mine's finished, so I'm getting fourth. I
You're
think.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, So we'll definitely know more by then, next week, for sure. But let's go over before we move on and talk about Ken Block, Josh. We get into the schedule for this weekend because they made, as we already mentioned, the Jaguars and Titans winning in on 8:15. The first game will be Kermit the Frog versus the Raiders. Raiders at Las Vegas, so Stidham will get a second start. They put up a fight against the Niners, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Literally, that's the worst loss. They've had bad losses this year. The Niners, they lost to Denver, they lost to Atlanta, and Chicago, and all of them are terrible teams. But the Chiefs absolutely tore them a new one at Levi's. So it could be a shootout there, but likely Kermit the Frog gets that win and pretty much locks up the number 1 seed unless some craziness happens. The Sunday slate, the 1:00 slate, will be pretty heavy. There will be 8 1:00 games of significance. The Patriots at Buffalo, the Vikings at Chicago, the Bengals Ravens matchup, and for the Texans, if they dump to the Colts, then they'll be the number 1 pick. If they win, then the Bears become the number 1 overall pick. But they have a quarterback. They don't have much else, but they have a quarterback. Dolphins still have a puncher's chance somehow. Panther, that doesn't matter. The Browns and the Steelers. Steelers need to win, of course. So there's different machinations going on there in this 1:00 slate. The 4 o'clock slate starts at 4:25. You have 5 games. The Eagles Giants matchup. 2 teams that'll be in the playoffs. Cowgirls and Commanders at Commanders. Of course, Cowgirls are in. Chargers are in the playoffs and could lock up the 5 playing against Russell Russell Wilson witch or whatever the hell Danger Witch. The Seahawks are home against the Rams, trying to lock up or put themselves in a position to get to the playoffs. And the Niners will be hosting the Cardinals to give themselves a chance to get the number 2 seed. And the theoretical last game of the regular season, Packers and hosting the Lions. So I guess, Josh, I mean, we already know your pick for Jacksonville, and I agree with that pick. In terms of we're working under the scenario, let's work under the scenario that the Buffalo Cincinnati game does not happen. They throw it out. So essentially, the Kansas City game would determine number 1 for them. If they were to win, they get the number 1 seed again. Like he needs that much help anyway. It's what the NFL wants, to be honest. But what other games stand out to you during this week? There's a lot of stuff going on there, but other than the game that matters to you most, what other games really stand out to you that for this last week of the regular season?
Well, I think I mean, there's a couple games that stand out, right? I mean, several of them have playoff implications, or could have some type of change in the seeding, right? I mean, AFC side first. I mean, the Steelers against the Browns. The Steelers could make it into the playoffs if they win, and Buffalo wins their matchup against Kansas or against New England. That would make Pittsburgh the 7th seed in the playoffs. Uh, and if Miami wins their matchup against the New York Jets, then that would make them the 7th seed. Which that's going to be interesting because the Jets don't have a quarterback. I mean, nobody on their team is good at playing quarterback. Even though Mike White might look good, he ain't really that good. The Dolphins, of course, injured. Tua's injured right now, uh, and they've been struggling without him. Teddy Bridgewater also injured as well, so that could be a potential issue there. And if the Browns beat the Steelers, then that puts the Jets or the New England in the playoffs at 8 and 9. Uh, in New England, of course, if they win against the Buffalo Bills, then they get in as the 7th seed. So yeah, a little bit jumbled up there, but the scenarios all kind of play and complement each other there for the 7th seed. Uh, the Chargers against the Broncos, that's a potential matchup there. Whereas Chargers win, they get the 5. If they lose, though, they fall to the 6th seed, and then Baltimore would be the 5th seed. If Baltimore loses against the Bengals, then the Baltimore remains 6th seed. Of course, if they win, then that would make Baltimore the 6th seed for the playoffs, or the 5th seed. So yeah, a lot of matchups here on the AFC side that could affect the seeding, whether they're playing against a playoff team, or playoff teams, or one playoff team. A lot of scenarios could affect it. Not really concerned about the Chiefs or the Raiders. The Raiders, I think the Chiefs take care of business. The Raiders don't really have much to play for except for their pride. So I think the Chiefs probably will take that game. The other games I talked about, Steelers, Browns. I think Steelers pull it out. They seem to be well coached. They have a lot of momentum on their side. Kenny Pickett, I mean, I don't really trust him as a quarterback, but he's doing what enough to win the games, and they complement each other as a team. I'd still expect the Bills to win against the New England Patriots. The Bills, of course, rallying. I think they're going to rally off of the Damar Hamlin situation and come together as a team and be stronger and everything. So I think you'll see Buffalo play with a lot of inspiration and everything for their teammates. So I see them taking that matchup. I see Chargers taking the Broncos in Denver. So it should be an easy matchup there. Broncos defense is pretty tough, but I think the Chargers are going to do enough on offense to outweigh the Broncos defense. And of course, Broncos did have a pretty poor performance against the other LA team a couple weeks ago on Christmas with Baker Mayfield uh, making the Broncos look silly and Patrick Starr roasting Russell Wilson, saying that Russ can't cook and everything like that. I think the Bengals. I think they will win their matchup against the Ravens. Ravens, of course, bit of a situation there with Lamar Jackson having uh, been out the last couple of weeks. Tyler Huntley in the game right now for the Bengals, but uh, he hasn't really played all that well. And the Bengals or the Ravens, sorry, the Ravens seem to collapse in the fourth quarter a bunch. We saw that back with Jacksonville in Week 12. So of course they've had plenty of other games where they've dropped in the fourth quarter. I think the Jets will defeat the Dolphins. I think even though they don't have quarterback either, I think they have a strong defense, and I think they'll outweigh whatever offense Miami brings on Sunday. And I think they'll win their matchup and eliminate Miami, who I think at midway through the season, I think we would have thought that the Dolphins would have been in the playoffs. So, it's tough matchup there, but I think Jets go out on a win to close out the season. And then the NFC side, you have on Saturday. Well, they're not playing on Saturday, but you have the other matchups, of course, the ones that really matter on the NFC. There's not as much I think that really matter as far as like who could win and get in. Of course, if Seattle wins, then against the LA Rams, then they are in the playoffs. Green Bay wins their matchup against the Lions, then they will eliminate the Seahawks uh, based on tiebreakers and being the seventh seed. The Lions win their matchup, then Seattle still makes it in. But if Seattle loses their matchup, then Detroit becomes the seventh seed in the playoffs. So you have that there. Uh, I think Philadelphia, I think they can still win against New York Giants. I don't. I'm, I mean, looking at it right now, I mean, I think they still have the better team, even if Jalen Hurts still is out with an injury. I think they lock up the number one seed officially. You have Washington, who was eliminated last weekend against Dallas. I think Dallas takes that one. Should be pretty easy. Washington, of course, Taylor Heineke benched. Carson Wentz was in the game last week. I started him on fantasy, which is a bad decision. I don't know why I did that. And I even picked up Sam Darnold, who I originally intended to start, but I thought projections would outweigh the matchups. So uh, I was wrong there, but I think in this matchup, Dallas takes over Washington. 49ers against the Cardinals. I think Cardinals lose that one. San Francisco wraps up the second seed. Of course, if the Giants win, then San Francisco becomes the number one seed, which could be possible. The Giants on a roll. They'd like to win to close out their season and have a lot of momentum on their side. Uh, could end up happening, which could make the Eagles fall the way down from the first all the way down to the fifth seed. So strong possibility, or not a strong possibility, but definitely a good chance that could happen. But I think Philadelphia pulls it out in the end. Um, last one, Vikings at Chicago. Well, I mean, I think the Vikings are the fakest team in the league in the NFC. What I mean by that is, for the record that they have, they're pretty weak, and we've seen them in losses against the Cowboys, against the Packers, where they lost big. And despite their record, I think and the comeback that they had against the Colts, I think they. Um, I'm not gonna say that they lose, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lost. especially Justin Fields. He's a very dynamic quarterback. And they also have David Montgomery in the backfield as well. But, I'm just going to assume that they win. That doesn't change the seeding. It shouldn't. So we'll see, how they play. But I don't favor the Vikings at all in the playoffs. I just don't think that they really are any good at all. And the other matchups don't really matter. Tampa Bay at Atlanta, you may as well sim that one in Madden. Just give Tom Brady a week off before he plays his final playoff stretch. More than likely, if he decides not to come back in 23. Panthers at Saints, that game doesn't matter either. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these games matter for the playoffs, but the important ones are the ones that are still teams still in contention on both games. So, yeah, of course, Jacksonville defeating the Titans. So, should be an interesting Week 18, and then we'll see what the league decides to do with the Bills Bengals game and what the outcome of that will be if they continue it or they decide to forfeit or consider the game completed or something to so that they can figure out the seating or if they do winning percentage or something like that. So we'll figure out what they do on there, and then we'll see what the seating looks like on Monday after they finish, or on Sunday night really after they finish everything. So should be exciting week 18 for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was just looking up Niners scenarios. If they can go and win and Philly somehow or another loses to the Giants, who aren't going to be playing anybody of value for more than maybe a drive or two, uh, then the Niners win, they can be the number one seed. Otherwise, more than likely they'll be the two. And it's either, we mentioned all the players for the 7 seed, the Seahawks, and or the winner of the Sunday Night Football matchup. And it always seems to be the case. I honestly, Aaron wins in this time of year. I mean, they were showing the record. Him and LaFleur, I think they have a really crazy good record in December and January. So I mean, it's a great story for Detroit. I think there's some good building blocks there. Personally, wouldn't mind seeing Detroit in one way. I also know that it would probably be a better matchup for the Niners than either the Seahawks or the Packers, largely because of the mobile quarterback. Yeah, the Seattle line sucks ass, but Geno Smith has been one of the better quarterbacks over the season. His completion percentage of any quarterback right now in the league, I believe. So that's one part. And then, of course, if Aaron gets it, then the Niners and the Packers seem to play each other every year. So that would be one thing. I mean, I was trying to look at the scenario of uh, they play the 16 game season. Essentially, right now, if the Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals end up winning and they finish at 13-3, and Kansas City wins, Kansas City's the number one seed no matter what. If Kansas City somehow or another dumps to the Las Vegas Raiders on Saturday afternoon, then that puts them back into the play to where the number one seed could move, whether it's Buffalo or Cincinnati at that point. And then also in that sense, it that would make the game against that Monday Night Football game moot, and all the other fantasy things and all the other stuff that goes with it would go away if Kansas City loses. Now, if they win, I think they're going to have a real problem trying to justify telling the Bengals and the Bills, who are both really good teams, oh yeah, no, we're not going to let you play. Uh, we're just going to cancel your game when you could be the number one seed and have control and have the possibility of making Kermit the Frog come to your house. I think they're going to end up having to play that game personally somewhere, and they're going to have to move everything back. Other than that, I mean, Josh already went through all of these. I mean, Jags. I mean, come on. That game should be over before the fourth quarter. Trevor Lawrence should put up the game that I needed to guarantee myself a real chance in fantasy in the championship, and put the Tennessee Tuxedos away. I mean, Buccaneers, they don't have anything really big to play for. They're just trying to maintain, just keep limit injuries. Bills should win that game. They'll be motivated, as Josh said. Vikings are a fraud, but the Bears are horrendous. But Justin Fields has played pretty darn good. He can't throw worth a lick, but they don't have much to throw to. But even if he could hit the side of a barn, but the Vikings, their paper, it's Justin Jefferson and what's his name? What's the running back's name? Dalvin Cook, and a couple pieces here and there on their defense, but I mean, come on, do you really trust Kirk Cousins to do something when it matters? Uh, yeah, the Ravens don't really need the game per se, and they're trying to bring Lamar Jackson back. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Bengals are going to be motivated. Uh, they're going to want that game. I think the Titans dump to get the number one pick, because that'll give them 2 out of the first 12. I mean, it's hard to think that the way the Jets have been playing recently that they'll end up getting that win, but the Dolphins have been terrible. So, I mean, it would be an ugly way for Mike McDaniel's first season in Miami to end, but it's got that feeling like what Josh was saying. I think Panthers win for Steve Wilkes. In the end, it won't matter. He won't keep the job because they'll probably try to hire Jim Harbaugh or somebody. Saints are going to keep Dennis Allen, it seems, either way, unless some craziness happens and they decide to bring Sean Payton back. I believe the Steelers will win that game and put themselves in the mix, possibly for that last playoff spot. If the Dolphins and the Patriots lose, then yeah, they would be the 7 seed. Eagles win, get the number 1 seed. Cowboys win, get the 5 seed. Chargers, I mean, come on. I mean, it is a Charger. It is kind of like a Charger thing that they would go and lose to Danger Witch, but it just doesn't. I don't really think it passes the smell test. I think the Chargers hold up here and then they shit the bed next week against Jacksonville. Seahawks, they should beat the Rams, but who knows? Niners should beat the Cardinals, but stranger things have happened. They have dumped to really bad teams this year, but this would be the worst. Other than getting killed by the Chiefs, it would be the worst loss they've had. They've lost to really bad teams. They've lost to 3 teams that are going to be in the top 5 of the NFL draft. I mean, the Broncos gave away all their picks, but they're a top 5 pick. The Chicago Bears are a top 5 pick. I guess the Atlanta Falcons aren't a top 5 pick. That's the only misnomer there. So, but 3 of the top 10 picks. And I honestly think Aaron's going to win that. So, okay, big spent a lot of time on the NFL there. We'll get into it more next week in episode 151. So let's get into the racing, and the first piece is the passing of Ken Block. And it's weird in the sense that I think it was on the 2nd, and Michael Schumacher's birthday was the 3rd, and you think about how both of those great motorsport icons, in Michael Schumacher's case, we have not heard or seen him in a long, long time, ever since his accident, skiing accident, and Ken Block passed away because of a snowmobile accident a couple days ago, and the outpouring of emotion and so many people talking about it, and all the people in motorsports that have been affected, but he transcends, and that's one thing, Josh. He transcended. He was bigger than motorsports. He was a branding genius. He understood extreme sports, but he was a racer through and through. He could go, and he was in the culture of the X Games culture. He was a big part of why that grew, but he also understood, dirt bikes. He also knew about uh, whatever skateboarding and bike, what do they call those bikes? The ones that like Matt Hoffman.
I mean, motocross, BMX, I don't know.
No, yeah, BMX, yeah. So BMX, that kind of thing, freestyle BMX, and then all that, and then became he first started with the Gymkhana videos. He was a Subaru guy. He was rallying on the side. Then he really got into it more and more, to the point where, along with his Gymkhana videos, he was with Ford for many years and utilized Ford products in those videos, including the Unicorn Mustang, which is one of the coolest vehicles ever. And he made the Huna truck, which was also insane. He drove the Mustang at on Pikes Peak, which that's I mean, you're combining two amazing things all together there. And recently, he was able to go, prior a few months ago, make he made a connection with Audi, which is he talked about it in his videos, saying that Audi and the Quattro is what made him a racing fan and a rally fan, and then he got to drive it in Stuttgart, and the that type, or what is it, the Group A or Group B rally cars, those insane cars back in the '80s, and he got to drive the um, Audi e-tron car that they built specifically for him to do uh, what will end up being his last Gymkhana video, which he did it in Las Vegas and other places. It's just insane. Uh, but it's a big loss to the motorsports community, and it's a big loss. I mean, obviously, to his family and his daughter Leah. Um, the heartfelt message that she wrote for her dad, and I know that he's looking up above for his whole entire family and his wife and the rest of his children. But I know that Leah's gonna go out there. You could just see it. She's more laid back and very, introverted, but I think she's growing as a lady, and the confidence that her mom has to go and, keep everything together. I think she's gonna give her that confidence too, to go and say, "Hey, you can do this. Dad believed in you, but so do I. That's the way we live. We're the blocks, and we're gonna go out there and we're gonna show them what's going on, and it'll be a great thing for her." I think it was something, Josh, that the last post he made, Ken Block, on his Twitter feed was about his daughter and her Project Quattro, um, that she's been driving her going to be her daily driver. Um, and I think there's something to that. It's interesting how that worked out. But Ken Block is going to be missed in so many different areas of our world as racing fans. But he's just the man himself. He's a great man. He was a great character. So many people loved him, and his passion for the sport is generally unmatched.
Yeah, I mean, he was a very influential person in motorsports, and he will really truly be missed. Of course, he was very legendary. I mean, I didn't really follow his career per se, but I mean, I know about his Gymkhana videos, and those were really cool. Watching those, I hadn't watched them in a while, but I remember watching a while ago, seeing some of his videos and stuff, and it was really cool what he was able to do. And he was also a huge rally star as well, and so he could do multiple things behind the wheel of a race car, drift car, rally car. So I think he'll truly be missed. And that was, another, of course, we talked about the Damar Hamlin injury, and this was a really surprising thing to see, and was lost in a snowmobiling accident. So just a unfortunate loss, to start the year in the world of motorsports. Someone who was extremely influential. And a lot of people, I'm sure, copied or tried to, were influenced by him, uh drifting and doing other things, just the world of motorsports. um Someone who's influential, I mean, think everybody in racing posted, rest in peace, and their thoughts on his, or their mourning his loss. So just someone that was very legendary, of course, and associated, of course, with Monster Energy for most of his career. Ford, the Ford Fiesta, Ford Focus, um, throughout his rally career. Although I think he did switch back to Subaru, last couple of years. So he, someone who's just legend in that sport. But also, in the action sports scene in general, of course, founded DC Shoes, which I actually did not know he founded that company, but I wore a couple of the pairs of those shoes back in the day when I was growing up. So, I knew about him and everything. I, like I said, didn't really follow him too closely, but he's a name that um, when you see rallying and drifting, and is a talent that you can appreciate, because he was really good at what he was able to do. So he became famous through his videos and everything, and being good at what he was able to do. So unfortunate loss, and I think everybody uh is right to mourn, and just someone that will truly be missed in the world of motorsports.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be some tributes to Ken Block as we go on here in the next few weeks. When I would think, especially when the clash happens at the Coliseum, whether it's on Keebler's car or certain other people, Monster connected. Of course, the Supercross season will be starting this weekend, which I just remembered. So the Super Motocross season is going to be starting this weekend, so there will be tributes to him there as well, all over for sure. And so we'll see what happens with that, to give the credence of what kind of kind of man he was, a great business, great racer to the core that Ken Block was. All right, so we'll move forward, try to get more positive. It's been a kind of rough start to the first episode here. We'll get into the uh, trucks and Xfinity. I guess we'll start with trucks. The truck series last year was kind of a hit or miss kind of deal season, but in the grand scheme, Zane Smith with Front Row Motorsports moving to that organization after driving for GMS. He goes to the Front Row Motorsports, becomes probably their the Ford's number one young gun, and wins the final race of the season after finishing second the last 2 years in points. He wins the final race of the season. He goes and finally gets that elusive championship in yeah, that's a screw up. That's supposed to be the expanded standings. But yeah, I mean, Zane Smith, Josh, he did a great job this last year, and um to go and earn that championship, and it he's put himself into a position where He's gonna be someone that Ford is gonna have as a key player here in the future because he was able to go and get that victory, get that W, beat Chandler Smith, who's now moving up to the Xfinity series. Ben Rhodes and Ty Majeski will stay as teammates at ThorSport. Those are the four that made the playoff, and they'll be driving Fords this year in 2023. So there'll be more Fords out there. Be nice. But Zane Smith was a great did a great job last year to go and finally get that elusive championship.
Yeah, Zane Smith, of course, had a great season in 2022. Um, he was a contender in 2021, and second in points to Ben Rhodes, and then announced as the driver of the number 38 in 2022, and scored first win in Daytona, or fourth career win in Daytona, first of the season. And he held off Ben Rhodes, championship rival from the year before. But yeah, just a good win, and then kind of became a road racing guy. Throughout the year, won at Coda in 20. In this year, won at Kansas. Someone that really came into his own this year in the Truck Series, and just was able to get the finishes that he needed to be a contender throughout the season. Clinched the regular season championship in Pocono. Um, ran well throughout the year, and came out and was really strong at Phoenix, and was able to you know win the race. Had to fight for it late in the race, to be able to get to the lead, and he was able to run the way he needed to win his first career championship, and he's got a bright future for him in later on in his career, and should be somebody we look out for in the future in this sport. Didn't think initially that he was really, that good, of course. But, I think with Ford, I think, they have a plan for him to stay within Ford and move on up into Xfinity at some point, and then, probably move on up into the Cup Series within the next couple of years. So, he had an incredible season, and, he's going to be somebody that we watch throughout next couple of years, and we'll see, if he's able to defend his title next year. Of course, returning back to the 38 and 23. So, it should be interesting with some people in the Truck Series moving on into Xfinity and everything, and should be interesting if he's able to become more dominant, or if there are new challengers within the series that will, you know, give him a lot of competition for the title next year, for this year.
Yeah, I mean, there it'll be a different cast of characters outside of ThorSport. I mean, they never really change. Uh, we mentioned two of those guys are there, and of course, Matt Crafton, the ageless wonder, three-time series champion, will be back, and Haley Deegan will be the fourth driver there. Uh, I'm trying to go look through who won last year. I mean, four Cup guys won in the Truck Series. Kyle Busch, of course, won at Sonoma. I think Chastain won at Charlotte. I'm maybe for I don't remember exactly. I think Will Byron won at Martinsville, and then Todd Gilliland won at Knoxville on the dirt. I'm just trying. I'm just pulling it off memory. Whether I'm right or not, I'm sorry, but we'll uh, we'll work accordingly. Amongst drivers that were scoring points, Parker Kligerman, who will be running full time in the Xfinity Series next year or this year in the 48 for Scott Borchetta and Big Machine Records. He won for the Henderson team at Mid Ohio. Emotional victory for him. Ryan Preece got a victory at Nashville, I think, which he had won the year before. And now, of course, he'll be in the 41 Cup car for Stewart Haas Racing. Corey Heim won Rookie of the Year, and for Kyle Busch Motorsports, 2 wins, finished 14th in points. Didn't I don't think he ran every race either. He only ran 16 races, and he beat a bunch of people who ran every race. Uh, he will be driving for what was the David Gilliland racing team. I think they're triad or tripod or whatever, tricon garage or whatever the fuck they named their team. Whatever the Toyota there, whatever that David Gilliland, Johnny Gray team, which is now the Toyota effort, will be the Grays, both Tanner and Taylor. And then it'll be the lead driver will be Corey Heim in that deal. And there's some other movement here and there. Derek Kraus lost his ride to Christian Eckes. And Hocevar, of course, he keeps his ride at Nice, and that'll be the only truck that's good or reasonable. Grant Enfinger is a part of a 3-truck expanded GMS team with Raja Karuth as his teammate. Stuart Friesen, I think, is working on trying to get a second truck for Lane Riggs. John Hunter's moving up to drive for Gibbs in the Xfinity series, along with Sammy Smith. And the third car will be a star car of sorts. So the 4 next this year will be driven by Chase Purdy for Kyle Busch Motorsports full time. The second truck, which will be the number 2, will be a collaboration between Kyle Busch Motorsports and Rev Racing for the ARCA Series champion Nick Sanchez. He will be driving that in 2023. And then trying to go through here. Yeah, he'll be in that deal. Yeah, Tricon. Yeah, they don't know what that. Yeah, Rev Racing. There'll be a connection with KBM. And then, yeah, I forgot about, Dean Thompson moves over to Tricon Garage. Olin Heim will be in the 11. Haley Deegan's going to be driving what they're saying is a 13 truck now. They got rid of I guess they got rid of the 98 then, or 99, or no, the 99 was Rhodes. They'll get rid of the 98, I guess. Ankrum stays at Hattori, but their other Hattori truck, I don't know if they hired somebody in that second one. No, they don't have anybody listed as of now. GMS will have, Eckes will be moving into the 19 Napa Chevy for McAnally. Enfinger will be teammates with Raja Karuth and Daniel Dye, who ran an ARCA. Jack Wood will go to the what is the I guess the 51, or I'm trying to 51 will be a part-time driver in the 51 Chevy with Kyle Busch. And let's see who else is full-time. D Burrito will be back. Jake Garcia will be a second truck for McAnally next this year. And then trying to see, Lawless Allen. It looks like he's still going to be there. I don't know. Then that's because he brings money. Timmy Hill hasn't announced anything, but I assume him and his brother will keep running that 56 truck. Ty Majeski, he ran the 66 last year, so he'll have Joe Shear Jr. back as his crew chief. Matt Crafton will keep Shane Wilson as his crew chief, and trying to see the 99. So they'll get rid of the 98 and they'll put it back to the 13. Jared Prince will take over as Ben Rhodes' crew chief on the 99 truck. Trying to go through some of these other people. That's a lot of these announcements probably are going to come up close to Daytona, I would think. because a lot of Truck Series stuff only gets announced right at the last minute. Yeah, I mean, but in terms of the championship itself last year, you think about Chandler Smith, the Kyle Busch Motorsports team struggled when it counted in the end. John Hunter Nemechek last year did not have as good of a year as he did the year before. Chandler Smith gave himself that opportunity to get that Xfinity ride to take over AJ Allmendinger's seat at what do you call Colleague, and that's a big ride. And going over to Chevy, another driver that Toyota loses to Chevrolet, and we'll see what Toyota's situation is. They don't really have a solid ground in terms of building a foundation to get guys to Cup. Will they be able to keep some of these guys? Will it continue to be the same thing at Ford, or and especially Chevy, poach these talents that Toyota's been cultivating over the years? I mean, that's really what something you got to look at for sure. I was going and I was looking at the point standings there. I mean, the highest total, of course, Zane Smith won 4 races. He won more stages than anybody. And in the end, he had the most playoff points. He was theoretically the best driver last year. Didn't look like it at some times, but really, when it comes down to it, he did what he had to do, get that championship. And he is definitely the favorite coming back for this season. Now that he's going to be running a little bit of everything. And you look back, I mean, Ben Rhodes is Ben Rhodes, whatever. Smith is gone. Majeski is returning. We'll see what he can do. Joe Shear Jr. is a great crew chief. Friesen, can he take that next step? Enfinger, can he, now that they're a 3-truck effort, can they take a step forward, or will it be too much of a stretch of resources? Eckes is moving to a different team. Crafton, can he get that elusive 4th championship and join Ron Hornaday Jr. On that mark? Hocevar has made the playoffs his first 2 years of his career. He's done plenty of questionable things. We'll see if he can mature and get a little better there. Ankrum, who knows what Hattori's got going on. DiBurrito was kind of a fail, but that team, who knows, maybe they can move. What will the Gilliland team do this year now that they're getting the full Toyota support? And Corey Heim, we'll see. He's probably a sneaky championship pick and contender. You look at some of these other people. I mean, Purdy is going to be the full-time driver for Kyle Busch Motorsports. The pressure is going to be on him to actually take that step forward after basically being irrelevant for a year and a half driving trucks, wrecking a lot of trucks too in the process. Colby Howard's another one. I don't know if I think he said he's going back to Xfinity. I don't know. I might have missed that, but Haley Deegan's going to have pressure on her because now she's actually driving in a big time team, and a lot of eyes will be on her when you consider what is it, all 3 or 2 of their drivers made the Final Four, and all 4 of their drivers made the playoff. So pressure will be on Haley Deegan to actually show up and do what she's supposed to do. She's been the most popular driver the last 2 years in the Truck Series. Can she actually put up results with that? So, and then once you get past that, there's a bunch of daddy's money ride buyers and crap there. So that was the Truck Series last year. The Xfinity Series was definitely more intriguing. There was a lot more drama in it for many reasons. But the thing that stands out, Keebler Gibbs goes and gets the Xfinity Championship a week after running over his then teammate Brandon Jones, and knocking him out of a playoff position. and then he goes out and wins at Phoenix to get that championship. 7 wins, uh, 10 stage wins, and he becomes an Xfinity champion his first season. So he's got an ARCA championship and an Xfinity championship, and he will be taking over the 18 car. It'll be the 54 for whatever reason. I don't know why they gave him the 54. I don't know what the connection is to him. It's a Kyle Busch number, but it's like you might as well just put 51 at that point because you're trying to foobar Kyle Busch stuff with him. Uh, I mean, the untimely death of his father was huge after the championship, like hours after uh, his championship victory. But Ty Gibbs will move up with his arrival in the Xfinity Series. Noah Gragson, who won the most races last year with 8, won the most stages, had the most playoff points, but when it came down to it, he wasn't able to close the deal. He kind of spit the bit, which is something that Noah Gregson's been known to do, along with vomiting. Justin Allgaier hit the wall and finished third. Josh Berry had issues and finished fourth, but in his first full season to get into the final four, he won his way in, but Phoenix just didn't work out well for him. 3 of the top 4 were junior motorsports cars, and all 4 finished in the top 7. AJ Allmendinger, after a pretty good season, wasn't able to get into the final 4. But in the end, you look at the top 5, 3 of the top 5 are all going to Cup this year. Gregson's going to be driving for Petty GMS, and Jimmy Johnson. And then AJ Allmendinger will be taking over full-time, driving the 16 in the Cup Series for Colleague to be a full-time teammate to his son there, Justin Haley. Austin Hill finished 6th in points. Mayer mentioned 7th. Buckshot Jones moves over to Junior Motorsports to take over Yagson's 9 car. And that 19 car is the star car now, I believe. The 18 will be Sammy Smith. The 20 will be John Hunter, or maybe John Hunter will be in the 19. I forget what that is. Hamrick, after winning the championship the year before, finished 9th. Congrats to him and Kenzie Rustin Hamrick, his wife, on the birth of their second child, who I think they named their firstborn son Rustin. So interesting name and deal there to an ode to mom and all that. So that's a interesting name, cool name. Let's see, Herbst. He'll have a teammate this year in Cole Custer. Sieg and Clements end up your playoff drivers. Landon Castle's just outside, and Sheldon Creed, who made a run late in the year, figuring out stuff, had a chance to win a couple of races there. But I guess, Josh, we have to talk about Gibbs and Gregson because they're going to be the story here for the rookie battle in the Cup Series in 2023. 2 guys that have been interesting, that have been controversial, and now they're going to apply their trade against the best stock car drivers, some of the best stock car drivers that exist. But what they did last year, winning 15 out of the 33 races, kind of speaks to their ability to compete against those big time drivers.
Yeah, with those 2 drivers, they dominated a good portion of the season last year. Early on, Ty Gibbs was the guy, and it looked like he was going to be the clear cut uh, winner for front runner for the championship. Throughout the early spring and even into the early summer, all the way up until July. But Noah Gregson had a couple of wins, at Phoenix and at Talladega, but he hadn't really established himself uh, as a real contender, and until um, the late summer and then the early fall, where possibility of him becoming a serious championship contender, became a thing. Um, the early part of the season, Ty Gibbs won at Las Vegas, won at Atlanta, and then won at Richmond. Of course, bumping out his teammate John Hunter Nemechek out of the way to do that, and then winning at Road America. So it was clear early on that through the summer, he was the guy in the championship. After that Road America win, um, Ty Gibbs was second in the standings. Noah Gregson was fourth, and Gregson only had 2 wins in that up to that point. But then by the time we get to the playoffs for the Xfinity series, Noah Gregson had 3 wins in a row at that point, and had won at Darlington, Kansas, and then at Bristol, and that win at to kick off the playoffs, or to end of the playoffs. Noah Gregson had won the regular season title. Ty Gibbs finished second, 13 points behind. So it was interesting how the flow of the season went, and Gregson was able to figure it out late. Of course, they had that battle together where they actually raced cleanly. Two guys who've been had reputations as being controversial drivers. So far for whatever reason, both of them had a pretty good battle, and clean battle for the win at Pocono, and Ty Gibbs ended up losing that race, but he ran, pretty well. Both of them ran pretty well, and led a lot of that race. So credit to them for racing clean in Pocono back in the summer. So that was a good ending there for that for that team, for Noah Gregson and for Ty Gibbs. And of course, Gibbs ended up coming back, and he was hanging in there throughout the playoffs, and then took out his teammate Brandon Jones to make it into the final four. Or he's already locked in, but and kicked his teammate out of it, and then had the dominant car at Phoenix to go out and win the championship. So both these guys figured it out. Ty Gibbs, we knew what he was talent wise. We'd seen it already in 21, the limited runs that he had. So we knew already that he was going to be pretty good. And of course, you're in a Joe Gibbs car class of the series for that team. So you knew what he was going to be doing. And then Gregson, we've seen flashes of his ability at other tracks, but he hadn't been able to put it all together quite yet. And this season, or this past season, we'd seen him being able to mature as a driver and figure out how to put races together and put wins together. And we saw that with the 4 in a row run, Darlington through Texas in the Xfinity series, and then of course he won Homestead as well, and numerous other races, Phoenix and uh, Talladega, and winning at Pocono as well. So he had a lot of wins, and kind of a breakout year for him, and it's going to be interesting what Gregson's going to be able to do in the Cup Series. Of course, going to Petty GMS, and of course has a new owner in Jimmy Johnson. And interestingly enough, there was the rumors back in 2020 when Jimmy was going to retire of who would take over the 48 car, and there were people who were talking about Gregson possibly being a replacement in the Cup Series for Jimmy Johnson. That was I remember seeing that rumor flying around on Twitter and I think Reddit. So interestingly enough, now Jimmy Johnson is his part or partial car owner in the number 42, and going to be a part-time teammate as well in a yet to be numbered car. So he's going to have a lot of um, you know information to gain from Jimmy Johnson. Also, Eric Jones and his crew chief is going to be following him into the Xfinity series, so that's going to be interesting. Uh, and we'll see how that plays out. And of course, Ty Gibbs, going to be replacing Kyle Busch and his sponsorship moving with him to the Cup Series. So Gibbs, he's going to be in a good car automatically, and so kind of expect him to run pretty well. Throughout the year. Wasn't as impressive in the Cup Series as what I thought he would be, but he, wasn't, negative really in the Cup Series, and expect him to be able to in 2023 to, I mean, I would probably make him the rookie of the year, but should be interesting how it plays out for him, versus Noah Gregson next year. So, both of them had a really good 22, and looking forward to see what the future is for both of those drivers.
Yeah, and it's something that we're going to look at because they're two guys that are going to be around for a while, and they have followings, good or bad. Uh, and it kind of is talks about the future of the sport in general. And speaking of the future of the sport, before we move on to the roundup, we look at the health in general of NASCAR series. I mean, when you think about the Cup Series, they only have chartered teams, maybe a handful of other cars. I guess in the 500 this year, it'll be over 40 cars there. So a there will be some bumping out during the duels. Um, More or less, it'll be kind of determined during qualifying for the 500 anyway. They usually only have one spot open for somebody in the duels after the qualifying. So, but other than that, a lot of the races are 36 cars, the whole chartered field. And they made the Clash is now just a cluster. It makes no sense. Everybody gets to show up. I mean, there will be a few eliminations. Famously, last year, Roush RFK got knocked out before the final. There's more drivers going to be in the final, but that's one thing. I look at the Xfinity series. You look at their top two guys leaving the series, and three of their top five guys leaving the series. Who is going to come up and make their name? Can Chandler Smith do that? Will it be Sammy Smith? Will it be John Hunter? Et cetera, et cetera. Can Cole Custer, after theoretically getting demoted, come back and have a good season and get that elusive championship? Because he's been in contention in Xfinity to win championships. But I also look at it, Josh, and how the health of the series is. Toyota's played its way and done its thing to where I think they've priced some of these small teams out, and you could see it in the Xfinity series to a lesser extent, but definitely in the truck series. The truck series is not very healthy. There's a lot of issues there. A lot of drivers that are in this series are there because of money, not because of talent. And there's destruction of equipment because of that. You look at the coverage of the truck series is terrible by Fox Sports. I mean, Vince Welsh was terrible as a lead announcer, but he was a good
At least he's
he was an
leaving.
all right pit reporter. Yeah. And so Vince Welsh is done there. And so it's like they don't even care about covering this sport. That's one thing. Then you look at the way the field doesn't look great. Kyle Busch is to the now after losing the Toyota support, had to get a ride buyer to two ride buyers to go and drive for him after having a team that generally was, talent rich. So it tells you where his team had to go once he switched over, had to make the switch to Chevrolet after moving over to RCR. The point is there's no identity. I mean, I look at the Xfinity series, there is something there. They have a good car, they have a good product generally, and they have a pretty solid drivers. JRM is great. They're doing their part. Colleagues doing their part. So Chevrolet is strong with those two teams, and then you have RCR with Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed. So Chevy is set. Ford is actually in a better spot than they've been in years in the Xfinity series, with with Custer back in the series, and then there's some other Fords I think that have been added on. So there'll be more Fords out there. But the Toyota situation is, I think Sam Hunt's team will help in terms of numbers and quality, but it's something we'll have to see with that. But in terms of the I think the health of Xfinity is okay, but they definitely could use some changes. I think the truck series, Josh, is where NASCAR and ARCA and they really need to reevaluate what that series is about, and change it to back closer to what it originally was for and what it was for many years, for it to be viable and last. Because, and I mean, Craftsman coming back is great, but they're not the same Craftsman that sponsored the first time. Craftsman is not, it's a company that's sold in different hardware stores. It's not Sears, whatever, that's running the Sears. They had all that money. Now it's a different entity, Craftsman. So it's not the same as what it was initially. So I think the health of the series for trucks is really concerning, if they want it to last long term. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, on some ends, yeah, the series, for and as a whole, not just Xfinity Truck, but Cup is healthy, right? But you see more contenders, right? But at the same time, there's a lot of consolidation in other areas, and you see uh talent moving up, like we talked about with Gibbs, talked about with Gregson, they're moving up. And then you have people replacing them, like John Hunter Nemechek going to the Xfinity Series finally. Uh, Parker Kligerman returning to the Xfinity Series after a long time being out of it. And there are new teams, right, being formed, um, or expanding and things like that. But at the same time, uh, there's a lot of drivers or a lot of consolidation, happening or could be happening. Um, it's going to be interesting to see where the future is, and if we have some teams, we have fewer teams, but they're of higher quality versus more teams, but you have a bunch of lower quality uh, drivers or team members or whatever. Um, but right now it's an interesting time in the Xfinity series, because you have guys who will be there for life, like Justin Allgaier, but you have Josh Berry, who is getting more sponsorship, but he might be moving to the Cup Series in a couple of years now, and likely Brandon Jones, of course, changing teams to Junior Motorsports, bringing sponsorship there as well with Menards. Chandler Smith, of course, going up to the Xfinity Series. So there's going to be a lot of talent moving around into the Xfinity Series, but it does look like it's going to be uh, a lot of drivers who are going to be new competition in the series. So it should still remain fairly competitive, and it's going to give drivers that stayed in the Xfinity Series, for 2023, going to give them more challenges and things like that. But then like you talk about in trucks, it starts to get harder, and the talent pool gets thinner there. Uh, Kyle Busch Motorsports, of course, switching to Chevys and everything. But they may not run a number 18 car. They're downsizing to two cars, uh, potentially, and they have a third one that they're going to be satellite, running as a satellite team, but or with assistance and everything. But you have a lot of drivers here that um, you know aren't really good or haven't proven themselves yet. GMS, they seem to be expanding. They of course have a lot of money behind them, but at the same time, um, these drivers, they haven't proven themselves yet, or they are now getting their opportunity. Um, you know with Kyle, even with Kyle Busch Motorsports, the drivers he's paired with, Jack Wood, of course, hasn't really done anything in you know the truck series, and has been, like you mentioned before, not been a very good talented driver. Um, other teams, manufacturers. You have Thor Sport switching back to Ford from Toyota. And it seems like every couple years they make a manufacturer switch and everything, but uh I mean, as far as Ford goes, it gives them more, more talent to have in the truck series, to use and funnel into NASCAR. But at the same time, it's somebody that they've been partnered with before, and there's not a new team, I guess, in the truck series, or a new partner besides them to continue to have a stake in that series, and then Toyota, of course, losing Kyle Busch Motorsports, which is basically who they were funding in the truck series. That's basically Toyota in the truck series, their presence, but you still have other teams in the truck series run by Toyota. Of course, Hattori Racing. They've been fairly competitive in past seasons, but we don't really know who there's going to drive in the 61 car. The 16 is going to be driven by Tyler Ankrum, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Toyota has. I mean, they still have some uh, Tricon Motorsports, I guess. Dean Thompson, Corey Heim, and other drivers. Tanner Gray. So that's going to be interesting to see there. So Toyota is still going to have a presence, but at the same time, uh, they lose a partner like Kyle Busch Motorsports going to Chevy. But yeah, I mean, the level of talent in the truck series is not that high. And we'll see how the quality of the racing is. It will probably be reflected in that, with a lot of crashing, a lot of not gonna say dirty driving, but certainly inexperienced driving and things like that. So definitely think the truck series needs a lot of help, and certainly shows the financial viability of running in the truck series versus running in the Xfinity series, and which one's cheaper, which one's more expensive. So because it seems like there isn't really like a lot of benefit financially to running the truck series versus running the Xfinity. But teams, we have a couple of exclusive teams in the truck series like KBM, uh like Thor Sports. So it's gonna be interesting to see how where the growth of the series goes and everything. But Cup as well, having expansion with new team owners and more former drivers partnering into the series, like Jimmy Johnson partnering with Petty GMS. So there's positivity there, but it seems like a lot of that is at the top and not at the bottom. So seems very top heavy in terms of involvement and money, I guess, and even talent wise. So we'll see how that holds for the future, and if they can figure out a way to uh, invest in the future of the series, and be able to have a healthy financially viable series for all the teams and everything. And we'll see how the charter system affects that and all that stuff. So it's gonna be interesting to see this year and in the future, as far as the health of the series goes.
Definitely, and we'll be talking about it all season here on season 4 of the GSP, in terms of all these series with NASCAR, along with all the other motorsport series that we cover. And speaking of that, we'll get into the GSP roundup. Dakar Rally is in finished stage 4 earlier today. We're doing this on a Wednesday, the 4th. So um, one of the favorites for the motorcycles, the bike class, was former Dakar Rally winner Ricky Brabeck, the lucky man who gets to date Sarah Price. Unfortunately, wasn't lucky in this race. Knocked out in stage 3 with a bad accident, but it sounds like he's going to be okay. But he got dinged up a little bit there and had to retire from the race. So, unfortunately, a former winner of the Dakar Rally is already out in terms of the car. But there are Americans. There is an American in contention. Skylar House is only 3 minutes 33 seconds behind the current leader Daniel Sanders. Um, Former winner Kevin Benavides is third at 4:05 behind Toby Price, and is fifth 7:17. Um, so those are some of the contenders there. In the T3 lightweight prototype class, is got 3 Americans in the top 4. Mitch Guthrie leading, Austin Jones in third, and Seth Quintero in fourth. Now, Austin Jones is only 11:31 back. The next Seth Quintero is uh, nearly an hour behind Jones after four stages. So Christina Gutierrez, one half of the Extreme champions with X44 for Lewis Hamilton. She is fifth in class, 2 hours 29:52 behind the leader there. In the car class, the one that everyone really focuses on, the T1, the Toyota of multi-time Dakar Rally winner Nasser Al-Attiyah is leading by 18 18 minutes, 18 seconds over his teammate Yazid Al-Raji. The first Audi is seven. I don't know how many times he's won the Dakar Rally, numerous times, both on a motorcycle and in a car. Stefan Petterhansel, the Audi has a hybrid electric component there. He's 18:52 behind. Carlos Sainz, Alatia's biggest rival, driving for Audi, is fourth, 32, nearly 33 minutes back. Former winner Janelle de Villiers for Toyota is 46:13 back. Multi-time DTM champion Matthias Ekstrom as the third Audi driver, 50 minutes. And then Sebastian Loeb, 9-time World Rally champion, driving for the Bahrain Rally X team, is 14th, has won a stage but had issues in stage 2 and lost a whole lot of time. He's an hour 33:43 back early in this race. So we'll give you updates again next week. I'll be coming off of, I think, the off day. So we'll have a general idea of where this rally is going to go. Or Loeb actually won today. Sorry, my apologies there. Moving forward, Rolex 24 at Daytona news. All these LMDH teams are preparing for their first race. Big talk about trying to get these cars to the finish of the Rolex 24. So much talk about if and how if it's going to be similar to what happened when they introduced those Daytona prototypes way back when, and a GT car one, or going back to the World Sports Cars when in '94 when they got rid of the GTP class. '94 they didn't the GTS Nissan 300ZX won. The following year, a Kramer Porsche won the Rolex 24. So that took until 1996 until the World Sports Car actually won. So it won't be that extreme, I don't think, but who knows? We'll see what happens with that. However, there has been some news with Wayne Taylor Racing making a connection with Andretti Autosport. So eventually, that Wayne Taylor Racing prototype team will move into the Andretti super complex that they're building. So that'll be part of it. That'll be a good influx of cash. Michael Andretti is involved in about 8 trillion. I don't know if the only series I don't think he's involved in is NASCAR. Otherwise, I think he's in every other freaking series that exists. Oh, he wants to be in Formula One, and Ben Suliam has brought that up. It says, "Oh, we're looking for teams." It's like, well, asshole, you had Michael Andretti and his legendary father saying, "We're ready, we got the money and everything," and because of shitty teams like Slobber and AlphaTauri and Haas and I don't know what the other crappy team, Aston Martin. Those are the teams that really had issues. I mean, Williams sucks, so that they probably aren't. They don't really want to have them out there either. Um, but there's so much money in Formula One. What the hell difference does it make? If an actual team that wants to be competitive and show up, wants to be there, have them come in. It'll be better for Formula One, honestly, having Andretti out there relative to having some of those teams that we have currently on the grid. in my humble opinion. Um, but yeah, the big news was that tie up between Wayne Taylor Racing and Andretti Autosport. Kyle Kirkwood will be driving in the Rolex 24 with the Lexus team again. Of course, he'll be taking over Alexander Rossi's ride at Andretti Autosport and IndyCar. And things that'll, for eye candy purposes and also good driving purposes, Sheena Monk and Catherine Legg will be the full-time drivers for Gradient Racing in 2023 for the GTD class. Sheena Monk brings her sponsorship with JG Wentworth to the team. They'll be running an Acura NSX. So that'll the new version, the Evo 22 version of the Acura NSX. So that'll be a good combination, someone to watch as the season goes on. Possibly, can they go and win the championship? It'll be tough. It's a tough class, but they'll definitely get a lot of eyes looking at them for sure. I mean, because Sheena Monk's hot. And so we'll see what happens with that closer to the Rolex. We'll definitely be previewing all these teams. We got over there. Got on a Dakar. So now NASCAR news, a lot of news about engagements and things like that. I mean, after A-Shock Energy is not returning to sponsor Clyde, doesn't really matter. I don't think he's hurting for sponsorship. Bubba Wallace and Amanda Carter got married on New Year's Eve, so that was quite a wedding. Was in People magazine and everything. Kyle and Caitlin Larson uh, uh, went and welcomed their third child, second son, Cooper, into the world on New Year's Eve. Eric Jones engaged to his longtime girlfriend, Holly Shelton, just before Christmas. Also, Anthony Alfredo got engaged to his girlfriend, Emily Brooks. They're talking about Ron Devine having to make payments because he tried to uh, uh, put it in bankruptcy protection. He has to pay $31 million. Well, it's kind of interesting how bankruptcy works. You see with certain assholes how they get away with everything. Jordan Anderson Racing today announced their expansion to a 2-car team. Parker Retzlaff, who looks like Paperboy or something. I mean, he just looks like if the definition of nerd. But of course, he's a really good sim racer. He's shown flashes, and he will be in the 31 car. They had speed at plate races, and road courses. Not much else anywhere, not anywhere else really. But we'll see what he can do as a rookie. Jeb Burton comes in, brings some money, but I assume he'll take over Myatt Snyder's role in crashing every week. Alex LeBay and his girlfriend are going to be are expecting a child. I mentioned Daniel and Kenzie with their son Rustin. There's a bunch of announcements for Alpha Prime, different drivers getting in there. You have some guy named Leland Honeyman. You have Ryan Ellis driving 6 races with the Keen Parts sponsorship. Stephen Parsons is going to run a short schedule, limited schedule for the Alpha Prime. Or Ryan Ellis Ryan Ellis is going to be running full time in the 43. So they will have the 43, 44, and 45 this year. Jeffrey Earnhardt will be driving the 44. Ellis will be the primary driver of the 43, but there will be other drivers, of course, there. And then in the truck series, Spencer Boyd coming back to Young's. He won one truck race at Talladega a couple years ago. So that's the extent of NASCAR news. For now, sure, there'll be more stuff coming up as we go along later into this month and, of course, into February. In Formula E, of course, the season is going to begin next week, so we'll have a little bit of a preview there. All the teams, there's been changes in terms of the manufacturers, drivers, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be something we'll get into more in more detail next week in episode 151. In Formula One, there's announcements of when teams will debut their new cars for 2023, launch dates and all. Alpine is going to launch their car, the A523, on the February 16th. AlphaTauri right now is going to be February 11th, Aston Martin February 13th, and Ferrari February 14th. So that'll be that. So we'll get in and see all them cars there in middle of February and what's going on with that, and if there's much change in terms of the looks or of the car compared from year to year, even with all the homologations and the cost cap going on. And then I'm trying to see, is there any other news of record? Yeah, set to hit weight targets with their 2023. Yeah, I mentioned the whole Formula One trying to get more new teams. I mentioned the one that really could stand out, but they don't want to do anything about it. The Super Motocross season starts at A1 as per usual, and trying to see the teams. You got, I mean, it'll be on it'll be streamed on Peacock. They will have coverage on the USA Network, but not every race will be on TV, at least live. Every race will be live on the streaming platforms. This website is, you gotta love it. Gotta love these websites these people build when they can't even go and make it simple to find information at all. I think that's pretty trash. So we'll go to Supercross. We'll try that one. The riders in the 450 class for this year. Don't want that. Riders in the 450 class for this year will be the ones to look at for the championship. Of course, is defending series champion Eli Tomac and his rivals. You're going to have Chase Sexton. So Eli Tomac on Yamaha, Chase Sexton for Honda. Ken Roczen moves over to Suzuki. Jason Anderson for Kawasaki and Justin Barcia for Gas. Adam Cianciarulo trying to return from another injury for Kawasaki. Yamaha teammates for Eli Tomac will be Christian Craig coming from the 250s and Dylan Ferrandis, who's going to go into his second year. Colt Nichols moves over to Honda HRC after winning the 21 East Championship. Malcolm Stewart, of course, is the lead dog at Husqvarna, and his teammate, Dean Wilson, one of his two teammates there. Former champion, two-time champion Cooper Webb trying to look for a bounce back on KTM with Aaron Plessinger and Marvin Musquin there. So those are some of the names that we'll be discussing. We'll see, will Eli Tomac ride after Supercross? Will he be done? Can Ken Roczen stay healthy and actually finish a championship? Will Malcolm Stewart finally win Supercross race and get to that potential. There's a lot of things. Sexton's the number one free agent in Supercross, so there's a lot of moving parts there. There will be a lot of stuff going on right now. You're people that to look at in regards to 250s a little bit deeper, and then who's going to go race where. Uh, Max Anstey's riding for KTM, Pierce Brown for Honda or Gas, Justin Cooper on Yamaha, Austin Forkner for Pro Circuit Kawasaki, RJ Hampshire for uh, Husqvarna, Jeremy Martin on a Yamaha, Hunter Lawrence for Honda, Jet Lawrence, his brother, of course, is one of the future. Both of them have tons of potential there. People who watch Cameron McAdoo for Pro Circuit Kawasaki, Michael Mosiman on Gas, Suzuki Carson Mumford, Mitchell Oldenburg for Honda, Joe Shimoda Kawasaki. Um, that's a great name for a Supercross rider. Nate Thrasher. We'll definitely get into. We'll see who's going to be riding in the West for sure. The West teams, so 6 teams, 12 riders, 5 teams, 15 riders. Okay. So yeah, Anderson, Cianciarulla, there's 3 there. Rockstar, Husqvarna actually will be Christian Craig and Malcolm Stewart. Honda will have Nichols and Sexton. Monster Energy, Yamaha, Eli Tomac, Dylan Ferrandis, and then the Gas is Justin Barsha. Factory 250 class. Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha has 5 riders. Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki has 4. Gas 2. Honda with the Lawrence brothers. Husqvarna 2. So that's what we'll see here. And we'll go into it more next week. See who won A1. So with that, Josh, first sim segment of the year. What are we looking at? I know with the changes of the Indy cars not being able to run the IR18 and the other cars, that brought some changes. But what else is going on in the world of sim racing?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, for iRacing, I mean, you can still race the IR18, but they cannot brand it as the IndyCar iRacing IndyCar series. So it's still raceable and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting now with not having Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the official schedule. But I mean, there's still uh, room for privately run races, and I think that's what the play is this year, or at least until they figure something out. I mean, I remember reading afterwards the iRacing stuff that uh, with IndyCar and iRacing that maybe by May they'll have something figured out, and the whole deal with motorsports games will fall through, and they'll just re-up with iRacing or something. I mean, I don't know. That's all just speculation, but that wouldn't be surprising. But as of now, no Indy 500 on iRacing officially, but um, there are other privately run series that could potentially do something. Which I heard this series or this league on online called the Major Series, which they're a setup shop. They do a lot of privately run racing on online on iRacing, and they have several events this year that they're going to be running online, privately held. One of them is the Indy 500, which they're going to be calling it the Speedway 500 to kind of differentiate from iRacing branding and everything like that, and the official IndyCar branding and stuff like that. So still be called the Speedway 500, and it looks like yes, it's the IR18 with Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The track shape is in the poster of the announcement of the race. So looks like it'll be that, and it'll be run sometime in April, or late April, early May. So look out for that. They'll also be doing looks like something for Daytona at the end of February, January, or at the end of January, early February, and Grand Prix of Long Beach, another IndyCar staple race. Looks like they'll be doing something in August for that, even though the real Long Beach GP is traditionally in April. So that'll be interesting to see that. Um, so that might be the play. That seems like a very competitive series, and of course, provided setups, and they were one of the setups that I used when I did my iRacing Indy 500 that I won. I used a setup from that setup shop, so that might be the play there. As far as just regular IR race or iRacing this week, and potentially next week, pulling up a schedule and of events this week. Let me try and pull up the schedule right now. It's still loading. iRacing series right now. Upcoming races and the road racing. Let's go with oval first. Start off with that. Pulling it up on my phone schedule here. The Open Wheel C, which is the official name now for the IndyCar series on iRacing. The international, Watkins Glen International racetrack. They are running at the the boot uh, layout. They'll be running um, that race this week, that racetrack. So should be interesting running that car on the classic layout of Watkins Glen. So that should be interesting with iRacing. Let's see here. Later on in the I think later on in the year, trying to pull up the schedule for that series schedule. So Watkins Glen right now. In the past you have the week after you have Phoenix Raceway, the old Phoenix Raceway, and then Homestead, Atlanta, New Hampshire, Michigan, Twin Ring, Motegi, Pocono, and then Kentucky Oval. So a lot of these tracks, or all these tracks, are racetracks that IndyCar has raced on in the past. But so it's still oval tracks that they've raced on, but are not currently on the schedule. So should be interesting on all these tracks for iRacing oval series on IndyCar. So that'll be interesting there. Um, the Legends series, the 87 cars. Let me pull that one up. Got see where's the trying to pull up the thing here for this. Oh yeah, the trying to look at that. Trying to get the schedule. Bear with me here. Well, I'll pull up the Cup Series schedule as well. It looks like Cup Series is going to be at Michigan, the old Michigan, before the repave. So that might be interesting. A lot of tire wear there. Pull up the reorganize this. Got that fixed series apply. C class or at this, the Legends Series 2023 season, also going to be racing at Michigan International Speedway on the old layout, or old pavement. So that should be a good race. Always a good one for tire management. Got to really preserve the tires, because if you run too hard, use up the right front, uh, at the end of the fuel run. And going to be a lot of off throttle time, and probably there are no cautions, maybe potentially a fuel strategy taking place. So that could be interesting there as well. And then Xfinity is going to be at Chicagoland this week, so should be interesting there. And trying to look at the truck series. Truck series will be at Hickory Motor Speedway in the fixed series and open series for iRacing on the truck series. That should be interesting. Looking at the road side now, let's take a look there. Road class, class B, class D here. The open wheel class D, so I guess that's the USF 2000 cars will be at Road Atlanta. You've got LMP2s at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Those cars, you've got the Dallara P217, so should be an interesting one there on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. You've got, let's see, Touring Car Racing Challenge, Daytona Road Course. of course, 15-minute schedule or race time. So that includes the Honda Civic Type R, which I have, Formula Formula D, the Rick Motec IR04. That's the iRacing exclusive Formula car that they've made, racing at Mount Panoramas, Bathurst. So that should be interesting. Ferrari GT3, racing at the new uh, French Magny Cores, racing there, the old French GP layout. That should be interesting. GT4 at Daytona International Speedway Road Course. That should be interesting as well. You got the Porsche Cup also running at Magny Cores. LMP, yeah, I mentioned the LMP2 at Indianapolis. USF 2000 at Road America or Road Atlanta. Uh, you got Virginia or VIR in the Cadillacs and Kia Optima. That should be interesting. So yeah, it's gonna be good set of tracks to run, good set of series to choices to run for start off the year on iRacing on the official side, and probably gonna start looking the privately run series. And I know that there's the you got the uh Dinner with Racers series, which I signed up for and never heard anything from. So maybe I'll just sign up again and see how I can get in there and try to run on
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
they're racing the Honda Civic TCR, which Ryan Eversley
yeah,
is a Honda driver, but they're racing it on Thursday night, the 5th, at Eldora Speedway. So that'll be interesting.
running
That'll be fun.
running a Honda, little Honda
Honda
Civic. Yeah,
TCR on a dirt track.
that sounds like a funny time. Oh man, I'm laughing at that. So maybe I'll try to join that one or come back next week. Whatever.
It's Yeah, we can see if you get in on that and how
Yeah,
you do. They take it seriously on the Dinner with Racers, but it would be cool for sure if we can do that. But
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, yeah. Don't do anything intentional, right? Like don't wreck
yeah,
intentional wrecking. But I mean, and they're not going to be very, not going to be very strict on, contact and anything like that, obviously, and it's a dirt track, so there will be a lot of should be a lot of fun if whoever is able to join it can get in. So that should be interesting. Um, yeah, I mean that's going to be interesting this year on iRacing. With everything we're able to do. Otherwise, and of course, still have the official events outside of the Indy 500. Still got the iRacing Daytona 500 and um, I don't know if I'm actually gonna do the iRacing 24 hours because of Daytona, because I have plans the weekend I think that they are scheduling it for. So I'll probably be out of the house for that. But I think they are doing their own version of the Roar before the 24. So I think I might do something like that. I think they call it the iRacing 2.4 hours of Daytona. So I might try to do that if it's on the schedule. Maybe do some more oval special events like the Coke 600. Uh, maybe the you know other sports car stuff that's on there. I think they are doing 12 hours of Sebring or something like that. I don't know if I'll do 24 hours of Nürburgring or anything like that, but Sebring maybe that might fit into the schedule. Um, maybe some other dirt races, or if they're expanding into Formula One content. So I try to do that. They have the W13 on there now. They had the W12 from 21. Now that I think they just uploaded the W13 from Mercedes, so that should be interesting running on that. Um, so it'll be of course, a lot of content sim racing wise, of course, throughout the year, and try to participate in it, when I can, and when when I'm able to, of course, and hopefully be able to do that as often as I can. So, I mean, of course, I enjoy and everything. So, of course, you can watch my racing on iRacing. You can watch that on Twitch TV / usailor2, and go on my streams and see that. Of course, watch the Indy 500 clip that I have from last year. Hardly was already last year, but still best achievement on sim racing and everything, and see that achievement there on my Twitch profile and watch that. And of course, still have my other streams up. The Connor Daily stream, which Phil made his appearance on there because I was broadcasting all my sound out and everything, but get to hear Phil commentate as I watch or as I try to race with the likes of Connor Daly and Tony Kanaan and other people in IndyCar who were on his race stream and everything the day that they announced that the Indy 500 iRacing was no more. And of course, all my other content, 87 cars in at Talladega and otherwise. So go watch on there. And of course, brings us to the conclusion of the tonight's show and everything. Of course, follow me Twitch as TV/UCLR2 as I already mentioned. Follow Twitter JP Huffine. Of course, follow YouTube page Grip Strip Podcast on there. Subscribe. Watch videos. Listen to it. Like the videos, comment on it. So go on there, watch our stuff, and interact and everything. And of course, yeah, should be a good year of racing. Should be a good year of football and or what's left of football and everything. And looking forward to concluding the NFL season and all that stuff. And having a lot of racing to look out for this year. And should be interesting across all the series. And excited to be able to talk about it later on, a couple weeks. Got the Rolex 24, which I'll be at. So should be interesting there. And looking forward to it. So yeah. First one of the year done for me, so let you finish out everything and close us out here.
Absolutely, and we're back. We're gonna keep this going here as we've done for 3 years. We're gonna do it season 4, and for as long as this thing's gonna go, we're gonna keep on going. Episode 150 is basically complete here. You can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. I'm looking at Mastodon or some other entity to probably move my handle and then also the Grip Strip Pod handle. Possibly we'll see about that, but in the works. We've of course debuted the new logo and branding, so I'm going to try to work that into some other aspects, maybe into other promotional pieces there. You can find us at Gripster Podcast, of course, on YouTube. We post the shows on during the week there, a few days after we record. You'll find our show, the sound, just the audio, Podbean. You can find it there or anywhere you can get podcasts, and at philipgmatthew.com. We will be back with episode 151 of the Gripster Podcast next week. Talk about NFL, talk about the who's in the there are going to be plenty in terms of the NFL, to be honest. I went and closed the list unintentionally. Who's in the playoffs? Will it be Jacksonville? Will who will the Niners be playing? The matchups. Black Monday, we'll know what coaches got fired and who may be in play for those jobs. We'll see if there's a resolution in terms of fantasy football. I've seen some ideas that might be palatable. We'll see about that, and maybe get into some of the guys that'll be top players to look at in the NFL draft, because those draft positions will be set. A good amount of them will be. We'll determine a series to recap, because I think I'm waiting on the Rolex, maybe do IMSA prior to the Rolex, but that's a couple, 2-3 weeks away anyway. The roundup will have Supercross A1, Dakar Rally. We'll preview the Chili Bowl next week. We'll also talk season preview for Formula E and other key stories. And Josh, of course, with the sim segment, thanks as always, brother. I'm glad that we're able to do this together. And continue to do this now that we've done for 4 years. Now we're on our 4th year. It's crazy. 150 episodes, year 4. It's something. So with that, that's it for me. We will be back next week. Thank you for listening, subscribing, following, and let other people know about the GSP. Might get some bowling content in there if I figure out how to throw a bowling ball properly. It hasn't really happened much this season. But I did win the pot last week in our league, so that was good. But not much more that has happened this year. But we'll see if that turns around here. 2023 is a new year, working on a whole lot of things. For Josh, I'm Phil. Take care. God bless. Goodbye.